Goeiedag, dit is Frieske Rieder here, and welcome back on the same dreadful early spring day on which that I recorded the starter relay video as well. So the reason I'm recording this video is because I want to share a few tips to my fellow riders that also drive in less than ideal weather conditions. So as for me, I've been riding for 10 years now, and I'm including my moped years as well. And I've seen all sorts of weather conditions. I've been riding in rainstorms, thunderstorms, hailstorms even. I've ridden 2 times in my life where the National Weather Institute had given off a red alert. And for today it's actually yellow because of storm. And I figured it's a good opportunity to share a few tips on driving in less than ideal weather, as I'm doing right now. So the first and most important tip that I can give you with driving in bad weather is your attitude. Me personally, when there's weather like this going on, like stormy and a lot of rain and everything, I don't complain about it. I simply accept the fact that these are the circumstances in which I have to go from A to B. I've got a good suit. It's good and watertight. So there's nothing to complain about, and complaining will not take away the bad weather. So I say, don't complain. Simply accept the fact that these are the circumstances in which you have to drive from A to B. Second most important tip that I can give you. This should be a thing for normal motorcycling as well, but in weather like this becomes even more important. Is not to lose your focus, right? And so if you're watching this video and you don't ride, or if you're watching this video and you do ride. So for those who don't ride, let me explain. A motorcycle goes where you look, right? So maybe you can see it in my 180 view when I'm going to Lauwersoog to test out the camera filters. You can see that if I hold my head when I'm looking left, my bike swerves ever so slightly to the left. Same goes when my head is turning to the right, my bike swerves ever so slightly to the right. So that's the ground rule when you're driving a motorcycle. Your motorcycle goes where you look, right? So that's why in this kind of weather, it's very important to keep your focus. It's very important to keep your focus on the point, on a point somewhere in the distance, so that your bike will keep going straight, right? So probably the third most important part is having good tires. So if you're driving like a race bike, you've got slicks on it, it's probably best not to drive in rain, right? Because you know that the tires are not going to offer as much grip as a tire that has been developed for rain use as well. So the first most important thing is everything that happens in your head. You have to have faith in your bike. If you're driving a racing bike and it's got slicks on it, with which you know you're not going to have as much grip as you would with another tire that would be developed for rain use as well, then you know you're going to lose a bit of confidence in your bike, and that's not something you can use when driving in these kind of conditions, right? So the most common things, the most common bad weather that you will ride in is either rain or wind, or a combination of the two. Now, as far as it goes with rain, as I said, having good tires is very important, because they have to offer grip in wet circumstances. And as far as wind goes, wind can be a little bit tricky. Not necessarily, but it's possible. Like for today, they've issued a yellow alert for storm. They're expecting wind gusts of over 90 kilometers per hour. And you can see it in the bike. With every gust that my bike goes a bit, I angle a bit. So driving in windy conditions, it can be tricky because if you have a crosswind, that means a wind coming from the side, and you get a sudden gust, it may blow you off course a bit. And if you are not prepared for that, it can take you off guard. So in windy conditions, if you've got a headwind or tailwind, it doesn't matter that much. If you've got a good windshield, the wind won't bother you much if it's coming from the front. If you've got a tailwind, it's even better, because then everything's quiet and you won't have as much turbulence and everything. It's the crosswinds that make riding in storm a little bit tricky. And when you have crosswinds, I've got only one tip to give you, and it's a very useful tip. So right now I'm having a strong crosswind from the left. So what you do is you change position on your bike a little bit, and I don't know if you can tell, but my knee is off the tank on the left side, and it helps stabilizing your bike because your knee works as a buffer for the wind gust. So if a gust of wind comes from the left, it will blow you off course a little bit less than it would when you are driving normally. Now that's the most important tip that I can give you on wind. We've discussed rain already. It's mostly choosing the right equipment. Now as for choosing to drive in these weather conditions, that's all completely up to you. I won't judge you if you're just a beautiful weather biker, as we call them in the Netherlands. I mean, that's all up to you, right? So I've been doing it for 10 years now. I am including my moped years in that. And the motorcycle is my main mode of transportation, so I'm kind of forced to drive in different weather conditions as well. But even if I did have alternatives, I probably wouldn't have it any other way. So yeah, that's kind of the tips that I have. And last but not least of the tips that I have is, the more you drive in these kind of conditions, the more experience you will get, and the more prepared you will be the next time that you have to drive in rain and wind. So yeah, but you certainly don't have to be afraid, assuming that you have the right equipment, of course. Once again, you don't have to be afraid of falling or losing grip or anything. It's mostly experience. So yeah, these are my tips for my fellow bikers. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time on Cham.